r/ask Reddit. What are some norms today that should not be accepted at all? Politicians not keeping their word and not being held accountable for anything except mere infringements of their positions. We seem to be pretty tolerant of politicians telling bald-faced lies. I mean utter fabrications that are demonstrably and unequivocally false. I'm not okay with this. At the same time though, a lot of people interpret not being able to pass something in a collaborative environment as breaking promises. My mayor promises a lot of stuff, and tries, but the board of aldermen are ultimately the ones who draft the laws. I don't blame the mayor or anybody for that. Clickbait. It's pretty much the tabloid of the internet. Also tabloids, slanted news sites that are secret propaganda, etc. Even conventional news sites are all in on clickbait. It's a ducking embarrassment. Doing stupid things and calling it a prank. Auschwitz was just a prank. Bro, the camera's right there. Just a social experiment. No need to try me for war crimes. And they say Germans don't have a sense of humor. The whole sneaking into your significant other's phone to go through their stuff. And the other side of that, which is just casually cheating on your significant other whenever the opportunity presents itself. I'm a very private person. My phone laptop stays locked at all times, not because I am embarrassed or have something to hide, but because that's how I am. I'm very upfront about this with people I date though, and it's usually not a big deal. I'm the same way. I work with kids though, so any nudes or messages between my girlfriend and me need to stay hidden cause they get a hold of my phone a lot. So I have a lock and fingerprinted on it. The amount of waste we make as a society. No one even bats an eye at the insane amount of trash they produce daily. If you do, you still get called a tree-hugging hippie. I've been working for a conservation organization for a couple months now, and our policy is pretty strictly leave no trace, which has really led me to re-examine my consumption habits, and consequently, those of society. It's impossible currently to produce no waste whatsoever, but it's not that difficult to cut down here and there, yet it's just not something that most people think about. I always admire the Japanese outlook on trash and recycling and composting. Streets in Japanese cities tends to be immaculate because there is a much stronger sense of community when it comes down to taking care of trash. Also, all burnable trash are appropriately filtered with non-burnable and recyclable trash, and they don't let you go off scot-free if you ignore these rules. You've seen the article about the large chain paper coffee cups, right? Surprisingly, most of our landfill waste is some sort of paper product. If you've never been to one, I'd say take a trip. It's amazing to see how they sort the trash. Yes, every bag gets opened, and the crazy stuff they find. Privacy basically doesn't exist anymore. It does, but no one chooses to have any because of social media. The illusion of sacrificing privacy may be more effective than seeming closed off. If you believe I put my whole life on social media, that's it. But I can get away with things I don't post because nobody's looking. They all think they've seen the whole picture. That's the new strategy. The rules of dating. Acting disinterested. Ghosting people. Not replying to messages on purpose to look cool. Commitment phobia. Acting so chill it hurts you. The list goes on and on. Who gave this manual to people that being a decent and honest human being who cares makes you a loser? I have been on dates where the men have ignored my texts, acted disinterested in person, blown off dates, only to tell me weeks later they actually really liked me and wanna be seriously committed. WTF. Modern dating is an exercise in who could care less Olympics. I have a few single friends who always complain about these things and then turn around and say that they don't understand how my boyfriend and I are so happy together because relationships are so restricting. At least I know what his intentions are. Everyone always says they want someone who will watch Netflix with them during rainstorms and make cookies with them at 3 AM, but the thing is, you need to work on and maintain relationships with people to get to that point. It isn't about ordering an instant date and then feeling weird and disappointed when they aren't your soulmate. The fact that teachers nowadays are afraid of losing their jobs because they told a set of parents that their child isn't perfect. I am a teacher and this is so true. It's incredibly sad that some parents can't accept the fact their child makes mistakes. I can't imagine what types of adults these kids will grow up to be. Ghosting. Though we didn't call it that when I was dating, If you've never been on a date with someone and just spoke on the phone a few times, then fine. Otherwise, if you've been out a few times, a few weeks, a few months, I mean come on. I know telling someone you don't want to see them anymore is an ugly conversation, but just do it and get it over with. Your only obligations is to be direct and act decent and polite. My policy is just be upfront. Hey, I don't think this is going to work. You can leave it at that or go more in depth, up to you. But it at least tells the other person you are not interested and allows them to move on. Now, if the person afterward becomes just awful, then block or stop responding. You can't control their reaction. Police sirens on radio commercials and in songs in general. We'll never know how many people get in wrecks every year by looking around to see where the siren is coming from. It's insane that the FCC has to censor every 4-letter word on the radio. But if you want to put a sound effect in your song that creates an actual traffic hazard, go ahead and have fun, kids. And the heart attacks of people smoking weed that hear sirens and gunshots in a song. Not cool. Whenever I send out a Facebook or online event invite, I get some number of yeses, mostly maybe yes, and some no s. The yeses have perhaps a 50% chance of showing up. The maybes have a very low chance of showing. It makes it very hard to plan. I have a policy that my yes means I must go, and I have been to several parties where I was the only attendee. Especially frustrating when you spend lots of money on movie tickets or food or supplies that go to waste. Yes means maybe. Maybe means probably not. No answer means no. And no means duck you. That is a perfect explanation. Creating a game and then withholding key features. Said key features are then released as DLC but should have been there in the first place. Side note. For what it's worth, I really enjoy the DLC system Ubisoft uses with Rainbow Six. More companies should implement it. And releasing remastered versions of games that are buggier than the original. Also charging $15 for a map pack when the original 10 years ago was $10. Not to mention this remaster was also a special edition game add-on where you were forced to buy the 80 copy instead of just $20. Modern Warfare Remastered. Saying I'm going to kill myself is a normal thing and we don't take it seriously anymore. Yeah, it is shitty that it has become commonplace. But if someone says it a lot then try not to get mad at them. People joking about wanting die often really do want to die, and them making jokes about it is both a coping mechanism and a cry for help. At least that's how I perceive it. But maybe that's just using anecdotal reasoning. I joked about wanting to die a lot when I was truly suicidal. It was definitely a way to cope. Throwing it out casually helped me control the thoughts better and made me feel less alone in it. That being said, after realizing I truly did need help and admitting myself to a behavioral health hospital, I am much more mindful about throwing it around like a joke. Sometimes I still feel that way, that LOL I wanna die, and sometimes it slips into jokes. But my close friends know me well enough to ask, hey, you okay? What's going on? If I start joking about it a lot again, I feel incredibly blessed to have friends like that who care about me. Texting and driving. You're operating a powerful machine. It's okay to focus just on that. Got it? Pay no attention to the road. Nearly killing yourself or risking death for YouTube views. I think this has always and will always be a norm. If not YouTube, then a group of friends will suffice. Some people just get a high off of being risky in front of an audience. I agree. Jackass wasn't popular for nothing. The fact that so many young people are okay with censoring speech they don't agree with. I'd say it more generally, that the populace looks at the government as a personal service that bans things they don't like without any consideration to larger implications. It constantly boggles my mind that people want to give the government more and more power when they've shown time and again to be incompetent and corrupt for at least the last few decades. Calling for the death of anyone you dislike. But my guillotine business was just taking off. I guess I'll have to cut all of my prices. Quit before you get ahead. Being fashionably late to things. No, it is not trendy. It tells me you're selfish jerk who does not value the time of others. If something has a set time, like weddings or formal dinners, I make sure to be there at least 10 minutes earlier. However, To offer a different perspective, if it's informal like a the 4th of July barbecue or something, I think it's polite to be 10-15 minutes late in case the host is running late. If I know someone cares about being on time, I will make the effort. However, I have been annoyed with perpetually early friends. One of them came over almost half an hour before the time they were invited to hang out with me, and I found it a bit irritating. Like, I invited you for that time as I'm in the middle of other things. They had to sit around the house while I wrapped things up, while being late dismisses other people's time. Being early can do the same thing. Self-diagnosis of mental disorders based off of romanticized, ignorant ideas of the illness. I actually have OCD, and the number of people talking about their OCD and how they can't stand when things are out of order, when the vast majority of people with this illness couldn't care less how organized things are and are too worried that if I move this book to the other shelf, their entire family will die, or the fact that the oils on their skin feels wrong and need to scrub off the skin to make it feel right again. This goes for so many other illnesses. I am just more knowledgeable of this one. Fellow OCD sufferer here. People alphabetize their CDs and are all at Twitter over how they're so OCD. No, OCD is when you spend hours counting something over and over and over, or getting up to check that the oven really is off for 4 hours. To non-OCD people reading this, we know it's totally illogical and we don't really want it, but our mind gets stuck in this mode that's hard to explain to someone who isn't obsessive compulsive. Believe me, it's a miserable condition. Being unable to speak out when you see someone doing something wrong. It's become socially unacceptable to make a person feel ashamed for their actions. This has been going on for years. People like to look the other way, afraid of the consequences of getting involved. Double standards? My cousin told me this, and it was pretty recent. He and his 2 friends were at the Rolling Loud concert in Miami, FL, and in front of them, there were 3 people, a guy, his girlfriend, and his friend. His friend leaves his seat and he holds it for him. Some drunk girl comes in, sits down, and the guy says, "I'm saving this seat for my friend. Do you mind going somewhere else?" The girl goes off on the dude and she stays in the seat. It escalates and she starts hitting him, and he is keeping his distance from her. His GF steps in, and at that point security comes in and tackles the dude. He was about to get kicked out of the concert, and my cousin and a few others were telling security it wasn't him. They got the girl and escorted her out. There's more examples, but this one takes the cake for me. Too long, didn't read. Dude told a girl to find a different seat. She proceeds to beat him and security jumps the dude. When I was younger, I went to a bar and was waiting for some friends. A bachelorette party rolled on in and was doing one of those scavenger hunt type deals, where apparently one of the items was a guy's underwear. I'm sure plenty of guys would have volunteered, but I was asked and said no. I laughed and joked because they seemed to just be having fun. But apparently no wasn't an acceptable answer. 4 girls tried to hold me down and take my pants off against my will, in public. A room full of people all stood and laughed, until I went "duck this" and threw them off me. Things then changed from funny to everyone booing and security telling me to leave, threatening to call the police. I told them to duck off and please do, which resulted in a fight between me and 3 of them and a collective cheer when they finally got me out the door. I'd put one of them down and done some damage on the other 2, who were trying to drag me around the back, no doubt to kick the shit out of me, when my friends arrived and they decided to just ban us all for life. I imagine that if me and my mates went into a pub and held a random unwilling girl down in order to steal her underwear, things would have gone quite differently. The boys will be boys argument. Everyone, regardless of anything, is held accountable for their actions unless some mental disability. Being socially awkward is considered cool or common. I don't remember where I heard it, but when my parents were growing up, being awkward was just considered you were a shy person. I think we are dehumanizing as a whole by constantly labeling ourselves. Being actually socially awkward isn't cool. From what I've seen, people who call themselves socially awkward are usually using self-deprecating humor or being modest or talking through an insecurity. And I feel like people maybe say it more often because it's becoming more acceptable to talk about your insecurities. I'm curious what you have in mind when you say that it's considered cool or common. College students here in America viewing blacking out from alcohol consumption as some sort of badge of honor. Yep, that behavior was around 30 plus years ago too. Trust me, I had too many college-aged acquaintances back then who blacked out on a regular basis. Thankfully a few grew out of it. The weird dating rules. I don't even know them all because thank god I met my husband before these kids got all crazy. But the idea of how often you have to text, when to put out, what you're not supposed to do or say, OMG. Just have a conversation and decide if you get along and wanna make hoopy or not. Unequivocally accepting authority's testimony or not being allowed to question authority. People acting purely on emotions. I see grown people throwing tantrums, screaming and accusing everyone else for all of their problems, not accepting fault, weaseling out of any situation, and bragging about how smart they are. If a person wants to call themselves smart, they have to be able to act bigger than their emotions. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.